Ooh, so I think I might have found a bargain. Let's have a look, shall we? Hello you lovely lot, and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie, and today we're going to have a look at these £5 watercolours I bought from The Range. The Range is a shop in the UK which pretty much sells everything from art supplies to cosmetics to garden stuff to car care, you name it, they've probably got it in there. I was having a little look around the aisles whilst I was getting some garden stuff of all things, and I saw this little travel set for £5. Well, I think it was £4.99, but you know what I mean. Now, I'd seen quite a lot of these portable watercolour sets before, a lot of them on AliExpress or on Amazon, and well, I just didn't feel like I could justify spending up to £15 on them. So when I saw these for £5, I thought, yeah, why not? Now, there are 25 colours in this set, and that's all I can tell you about the colours. There is no pigment information, no light fast information. The colours don't even have names. But for £5, I kind of don't expect any of those things. However, they did swatch out quite nicely. One or two of them did take a little while to activate, but I guess some watercolours are just like that. But yeah, I was impressed to start off with. So I thought I'd work on a few pieces and share the results with you. So this cat picture is what I wanted the one I did in Scrawler Box to look like with the alcohol inks. I felt like I needed some closure on this piece and to do a better job with it. So to use them on this particular subject seemed like a great option. I wanted to see how well the blues and the purples merged. Now, I've used quite deep colours straight away on this for in the background, and I do layer it a little bit here and there. And overall, my first impressions on this picture are not terrible. The paint is a little bit, I want to say gloopy, especially for a pan, that doesn't seem right, but they just seem a little bit gloopy to work with, and the mass tone itself only goes so far. However, as you see in the background, things blended and merged quite nicely, as you'd expect with wet and wet, and for incredibly cheap paints, I was quite surprised. I've spent more on paints and got less from it. However, I wasn't massively impressed with the finish, I guess. It's all, I don't know, I'm quite conflicted on this one. Sometimes they dry a little bit shiny and sometimes not. There wasn't a very consistent finish to it in my opinion, and you can't really see it on screen, but in real life, yeah, I don't know. You'd got matte next to slightly glossy, but again, £5 paints, what can you say? I tried a typical more watercolour style for this with the layering up, and that also had its problems too. Now, I can't say they were terrible, but I don't know, there was just something about them that just felt a little bit off. I couldn't get the deep blue in the bottom left hand corner to be even, so that was a little problematic for me. And the more I used these colours, the less, oh, it's hard to describe. They seemed to get worse as I went through them. Some which started off quite pale and not very pigmented, well, the very same paint after a bit of use would become more pigmented, and I get that. There's obviously something on each of the pans in there which obviously stops them coming to life during transit to the shop, so I get that. But then some of the more pigmented swatched out colours weren't so they weren't so vibrant when it came to an actual painting with it. It's very bizarre, and I will show you the palette at the end of this video, and that might shed some light on why these behaved in such an unusual way. I ended up having to use a pen on this because the details that I was wanting to put in, they just weren't coming through, so I did have to cheat and use the pen here a little bit, just to try and recover something from there. Now, the next picture you're going to see is from pretty much when I had the new camera, so that's why half of it is missing, but the background there was the black, and I used the mass tone on that, which is returning to my point of it was very dark and very black on the swatches, but when it came to doing the background, no, I couldn't really get it any deeper than what you see, so what I did instead was just add some texture in there, because it just didn't go down very nicely at all. And as you can see, I'm layering now. It's still not really letting much of that pigment through, so it was a little bit disappointing in that respect. I do feel that this picture is slightly better than the other fish picture I did. Like I say, I am giving these paints a jolly good try. But I just felt so disappointed because the paints I was painting with now and the ones that I swatched, which are clearly the same, were not behaving the same. And I guess as an artist, and if you're watching, you're an artist too, we all like a little bit of consistency with our materials, right? So whilst this is painting in the background, I'll discuss the practicalities behind such a palette. So you saw at the beginning, they all have a pivotal point at the top and they all slide out and you can access your watercolours and it's all great. But it's not. Some of them, as you can see, are obscured by the layers above them. So if I wanted to use that green at the top, I couldn't. Not without moving all of the others around. And if I've been using some of the colours of the others, that's going to cause problems, right? If I was on the go with my watercolours, I perhaps wouldn't use these for that, just because there are too many to choose from. If it was something where it was based on your primary colours and there was a little less choice in there but more space to blend and mix, I'd be totally on board. And I did forget to mention, but there is a little mixing palette sleeve as well, but it's just not big enough. I don't know. It also came with a water brush, but you know how I feel on them, especially when I'm working at home. I will give this to them though. The colours that remained vibrant did remain vibrant. The yellows and the sort of warm reds were really quite nice to work with. And some of the purples also carried quite a good amount of pigment in them, so that allowed me to add some additional values to this piece. And out of all the ones I've done, this is the better one of the bunch. And it's weird really, because I'm not disappointed. They were only £5. And I do feel like there is some potential with some of those colours. However, there's also a lot of holdbacks, or setbacks rather. I could buy a small Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolour set for perhaps twice as much, maybe £10 more. And I know that can make a lot of difference, but the paints are going to behave consistently every time. You've got a better setup as well. You're not going to contaminate your paints as easily like you do with this. And of course, with a Cotman set as well, you're going to have some pigment information. So if you do want to do something and you want to know if it's going to last or not, you will have information to refer to there. However, as a practice set, I don't think this is too bad. You're obviously going to have to just avoid using those non-consistent colours. But for £5, you have got some very vibrant colours. They mixed up well. They didn't dry very well on the palettes, as you can see on the screen here, so storing them's not great. But if you take away the travel aspect and just see them as a watercolour set, they're not bad for beginners, I guess. Very early beginners. I wouldn't say students, but I would say beginners and learning about how watercolours work. In fact, for £5, that's pretty good. If you're sort of at a stage where you're wanting to take things a step further from very beginner materials, then perhaps I would invest in a brand that you know. But for £5, I don't know. They weren't all terrible paintings from it. I especially like this one the best, but I did have to work twice as hard. But anyway, I've tried them. This is what I think. If you've enjoyed this video, there should be some more on screen now that I think you're going to enjoy. I want to say a huge thank you for watching, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!